Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about different measurements that a micrometer can make using or utilizing different tools available to us, or different measuring tools that we can use. So as you can see here, I have a couple of cylinders that I would like to be measuring. So I have a cylinder and a cylinder. So what I can use is a micrometer to make these measurements. But as you can tell, if we look at a typical micrometer, I can only measure the outside diameter of something. So I can actually open it up and measure how wide this marker is, so outside diameter. But I can measure inside diameter using a micrometer with the help of another tool, or a couple other tools. So this tool right here is called a telescoping gauge. So you can see that it has these plungers that can go inside and out, and it has a lock mechanism. So once they go in, I can lock it and they stay in place. Then I can take a micrometer to measure end to end, and now I've taken an inside measurement, or inside diameter. So how a telescoping gauge works is it actually goes inside a cylinder. And so when I want to make a measurement or measure a cylinder, I'm measuring it for taper or wear. So if I look at a cylinder right here, there's my cylinder, just like that. What I'm going to do is take a telescoping gauge that goes inside and measures edge to edge. I do that on the top and the bottom, so I'm also going to measure from here, edge to edge. I'm looking to see is it wider at the bottom, or is it wider at the top above manufacturer specifications? And if it is above it, then I have to follow the specifications to see what are the repairs that are available to me to repair this engine. I want to make sure I measure in two different places, so at the top and the bottom in a crisscross pattern. So if you had a top profile or view here, I'd measure edge to edge, edge to edge, both on the top and on the bottom of the cylinder. So if I take my telescoping gauge, what I want to do is, you don't want to plunge them in and then release really quickly, because it's going to damage some of the components inside there. From time to time, this piece can actually fly out and the little spring mechanism is now broken. So you want to be careful, it's still a measuring tool. So what we want to do is gently plunge them in, and now I go into that space there. I don't want to be angled too far on one side, over on one side, so you don't want it inside there going like this, this, or this. You want to find the perfect center point. So we angle ourselves in. Once I find a nice drag on it, it's not too tight, but it's not too loose. So you don't want it to be able to basically fall inside there. Once I get that, we're going to lock it, pull it out, and now I can take a micrometer. Obviously I would use a larger one than this, but I take my micrometer and measure edge to edge. Once I'm done with that measurement, I can unlock it and go to the next side. Inside, make sure I find my center, lock it, and make my measurement. I'm going to document every measurement that I do and then refer to the manufacturer's specifications. Now, another measurement that I can take is with a small bore gauge. It's still a measuring tool, and it allows me to measure the inside diameter of something. So a small bore gauge is similar to something like this. So a small bore gauge has a ball on one end, so a larger one right here, so a larger ball on one end that I can actually change the size of it. So as I turn this piece here, I actually expand the ball wider and wider. These are commonly used to measure valve guides. So as valves are going up and down, what it could potentially cause is the valve guide to wear, to become larger than it's supposed to. And that can cause some oil leaks and a bunch of other issues here. So when you're doing an engine rebuild or tear down for diagnosis, these are the types of measurements that you would take. So what you would do is take your small bore gauge and go inside the hole. What you're looking for is a small amount of drag. So it's not the same as the plunger where it actually plunges itself and gets a perfect measurement and then you can lock it. This one is I have to manipulate it. I have to make it bigger or smaller depending on the size of the hole. What you're looking is for a small amount of drag, so the hole is actually pulling ever so slightly on that. It's similar to like a feeler gauge drag. You don't want to have to yank it out, and you don't want it to basically be flopping around inside there. You want a nice drag on there. So as an example, I'm going to measure this hole inside here. I'm going to turn the dial until it feels just right. Now I can pull it out and make a measurement. So now I can take my micrometer, just like this, and make my measurement. So I'd put the ball right in the center, just like that. So I'll do it that. So I put it in the center, I'm going to turn my ratchet, and that's what's going to create my perfect reading there. You can hear the ratchet and make your lock. Now we've talked about reading a micrometer. I'm holding onto the temperature sensitive frame. That's the only spot where you're going to hold onto it so the heat from your hand doesn't affect any of your readings. Now I have a 0 to 25 millimeter micrometer. Now just as a review, we'll read this micrometer now. So remember, the top half of our micrometer is our full millimeters. The centerpiece, the center line, is our guide line, and the thimble, as it rotates in or out, it uncovers the numbers that we're going to be reading on the sleeve part. So if I'm looking at this, I have the number 10 and the number 11 exposed, but just the 11 is only just been exposed. As you rotate through, as I know it's harder to see, but the 0 is down here. I've just gone past that. So how I write that is I start off with my 11 millimeters. My next reading is the bottom half. Now remember, that is in half a millimeter, so 0.5 of a millimeter. None of my millimeter lines have been, or my half millimeter lines have been exposed. So keep your process the same. Even if it's 0, still write them down, because the next time you might have a half millimeter and you might forget to add that step in there. Your last step is reading our thimble. So our guide line on the sleeve points to the line on our thimble. So on my thimble, I passed the 10 and I'm dead set on the 11 line. So now it is 0.11 millimeters. I add them all together and I ended up with 11.11 millimeters. So that means this hole is 11.11 millimeters. I will now refer back to my manufacturer's specifications and determine if the hole is the correct size or not. If not, I need to make the repairs necessary. If it is, I can continue on with my diagnosis of this engine.